Hello, my name is Matt, also Unbearable 73. In this episode, I'm going to go over and give my thoughts on Amazoff's Rings of Prime teaser trailer number one. Uh, I'm focusing on one thing for this video, one particular thing. Okay, it's that fireball in the sky and what the rumors have been about who or what that could be. Okay? So I'm going to go over what of the characters they've of all the characters that have been rumored it could be, or the characters they claim it could be, why it's either unnecessary for there to be a fireball or unlikely, and then we'll see what Amazoff actually does with the setting. Okay? So let me give you some background info first, okay? And just so you understand the context of where my hypothesis is coming from. J.R.R. Tolkien created his Legendarium with the understanding that it basically is a myths that occur in the past of the current Earth. So, in other words, obviously it's fiction, but had it really occurred, it would have occurred in a mythological, magical time period that we can't find because of the powers that be altering the past, the world in the past. Okay? So it occurs somewhere between two glacial expansions. Is one of the things he mentioned over the years, and specifically in letter 211, which is a very significant letter containing a lot of information about the setting. By the way, in a note to that letter, he says, "I imagine the gap to be about 6,000 years. That is, we are now at the end of the fifth age. If the ages were of about the same length as the second age and third age, but they have, I think, quickened. And I imagine we are now actually at the end of the sixth age or the seventh age." So when he wrote that letter, so to speak, uh, there would have been at the end of the sixth or seventh age. That's basically what he was saying. Now, I've also seen some arguments made that Tolkien, in later comments made and work done after that, was contemplating moving the setting back to around 20,000 years ago. I'm not saying which is right, and neither matters for the purpose of the story. The only point I'm getting to is that after a certain event, the world basically is the world we exist in today in terms of structure. Okay, that's all I'm getting at. Now, of course, it takes place in northern and western Europe and parts of the Atlantic Ocean for the most part, right? And it's fully compliant with Catholicism in terms of both the events and the metaphysical structure of the setting. So that's just so you understand how he put things together and answer some questions about who certain beings are. The next factor is that how Arda, which is the Quenya name for the Earth, was before and after the sinking of Numenor. Let's take a look here. From the beginning until before Eru sunk Numenor, Arda was a flat plate. That's a hand-drawn map by J.R.R. Tolkien that you're looking at over there. Okay? And this is Valinor. There are better scans of this, but I don't have one right now. So let's speak, there's Valinor over here. And so the point I'm getting at is it's a flat plate. Aman was a continent, which is where Valinor is. This is Aman. Was a continent in the Atlantic Ocean to the west of Middle Earth. Valinor, the kingdom of the Valar, and Eldamar, the kingdom of the Elves, are there. Aman is also known as the Undying Lands. That's most often what I call it, is the Undying Lands. And it represents at the time, it was a piece of the earth that was uncorrupted by Melkor. It's possible before Numenor sunk to sail to and from an Aman, as well as travel over the far north to the polar ice caps. That's how the Noldor came back to Middle Earth, for example. Right? That's also how Melkor and I forget the other being traveled to Middle Earth. Because Utumno, the fortress, was in the far north of Middle Earth. After he sunk Numenor, or during the act, Eru reshaped Arda into the sphere that we know today. He lifted Aman off the earth, and for all practical purposes, he put it into outer space. Literally in the Silmarillion, okay, in the Alphabet, it says, "Thus in after days, what by voyages of ships, what by lore and starcraft, the kings of men knew that the world was indeed made round. And yet the Eldar, which are the elves, were permitted to still to depart and to come to the ancient west and to Avalon, if they would. Therefore, the lore masters of men said that a straight road must still be for those that were permitted to find it. And they taught that while the world fell away, the old road and path of memory of the West still went on. as it were a mighty bridge invisible that passed through the air of breath and of flight and traversed Ilmin, which flesh unaided cannot endure. Ilmin, this word here, right there, right? Ilmin is the Quenya word for space, outer space. It's literally the place surrounding Arda where the stars are. That's the actual definition of the word. Okay? Eru forbade anyone from leaving Amon and going to Arda without his permission. Arguably Manwe's permission too, but basically that's how it works. Eru created the Straight Road, which is a one-way trip from Arda to Amon. So anyone who was allowed to go to Amon, the elves, the Maiar, select men, like the ring bearers and all, and Gimli, and in the 9th century, Alfwine, I believe his name was, which is how Tolkien set up the actual lore of the Lord of the Rings to exist. But I'll do another video on that guy. They can go from the Earth, around Earth, and find the magical straight road that takes them into space to Valinor, to the Undying Lands. Now, the final factor that we need to put out there is, at the end of the First Age, what happened to Sauron? Okay? At the end of the First Age, the War of Wrath occurred. After Morgoth was exiled and Thangodorum, which was a gigantic mountain with 3 peaks, each peak was larger than Mount Everest, was crushed and Calagon's body fell on top of it. That's the biggest dragon ever. Sauron adopted a fair form and repented of all his deeds because he feared the wrath of the Valar. Eonwy, who was Manwë's herald bearer, and he's the mightiest of the Maiar. Sauron is the most powerful, but he's not, in terms of pure physical might, others surpass him. Okay, ordered Sauron to return to Valinor to face Manwë's judgment. But Sauron disobeyed and fled into hiding in Middle-earth. Now, from the Silmarillion, we learn in Of the Rings of Power in Third Age. Therefore, when Eonwy departed, he hid himself. He, meaning Sauron, hid himself in Middle-earth, and he fell back into evil. For the bonds that Morgoth had laid upon him were very strong. In Appendix B of the Lord of the Rings, there are detailed timelines of the Second and Third Ages. In the Second Age timeline, it states, in the year 500, explicitly states, Sauron begins to stir. So, right there we know Sauron was always in Middle-earth. Always in the setting. Just from year 1, basically from the end of the First Age to 500, he was in hiding, recuperating his strength. Now, we know they're compressing the timeline of the Second Age massively for this crap show. I'm not going to belabor the whole timeline of the Second Age, but I will link my video below of the highlights of the Second Age that are relevant to the canon versions of events that we bastardized in this show. So here's a few more canon events to be aware of. In canon, Celebrimbor is killed after being tortured for 2 years by Sauron in Second Age 1697. Ar-Pharazôn, the king who Sauron basically mind-controlled and had him lead and had him commit acts that led to Numenor's destruction by Eru, was born in Second Age 3110 or so, give or take. Okay, Numenor was smote in Second Age 3319. So just give you some timeline issues. So Numenor as Second Age 3319, Sauron Second Age 500. That means Sauron was active for almost 2,800 years of doing things before Numenor was sunk. Okay, I'm just telling you that to give you the timeline and the structure of the events. Okay, so why did I tell you all that? First, I'm just going to summarize now. Sauron never left Middle-earth, let alone Arda, and Arda is the Quenya word for Earth. He hid for the 500 years, began building his power, and by Second Age 1000, he began working to conquer Middle-earth, towards conquering Middle-earth. So now we have several rumors about who this fireball in the sky could be, from which a man-like figure emerges. Okay, the first rumor is that this is one of the Istari. The Istari, there were 5 named major Istari who were Gandalf, Saruman, Radagast, who came to what we think of as the west of Middle Earth. Okay, and then Alatar and Palando. I never remember that last guy's name, but Paladano or Palundo or something like that. Those two were the Blue Wizards. They went into the far east, so to speak, of Middle Earth to try to help the people who Sauron was suppressing in the vast tracts of land that he ruled, in like Rovinion and Run, so to speak. So The Astari, like all the others in Aman, they literally could just uh, sail from Valinor to Middle Earth. There's no need for them to be a fireball in the sky, descending from anywhere. Remember, that fireball looks like it's coming down from somewhere, okay? There's no need for them to do that, okay? Now, in the Unfinished Tales and the appendices and the notes, while there are 5 Istari who have my name, those are the majors, there are wording that alludes to there have been others who are sent in that role. Okay, but the Astari came in the Third Age, around, I want to say either 1,000 years before the War of the Ring, or year 1,000 of the Third Age. It escapes me right at the moment here. Okay, so the 5 named ones who are specifically told us coming in the Third Age, couldn't be there. Though I have a note, there is one qualifier to that. In the Unfinished Tales, Gandalf is the name. It means elf friend. Okay, elf wand, a wand of the elves or something, roughly. That's one of his names. His actual Maya name is Aloran. Now, there's nothing wrong with Aloran being, he was Manwë's chief advisor. He's like Manwë's sort of like lore master in a way, and he was always with the elves from the beginning, and even with men early on. He was always interested in the children of Yuvatar in their betterment. Okay, but he was always hidden and subtle. Like he wasn't out there like all the other Maiar. Like Melian built the girdle of Melian to protect the king of Doriath, or any other incredible things the Maiar did. He was always subtle and just trying to help people by influencing. So, in the Unfinished Tales, in the part about Celeborn and another thing, Celeborn and Galadriel, Aloran is alluded to being there to help advise them in some capacity. Okay, but that being said, he does nothing but be there to advise them at times. Okay, and that's the only specific case in the lore where one of the beings who become the Astari is mentioned as possibly being in the Second Age. Now, the other thing I was mentioning with the Astari, Tolkien sort of alludes, and when I say allude, I don't mean he's giving you a subtle hint that they're there, but you should not expect it. When Tolkien does something like that, that's telling you he has something in his mind saying, I might want to add that element to the story in the future. Sadly, the professor, like all of us, eventually died. He was working on this thing till his end, constantly trying to edit and prepare text and whatever. So it wasn't like he said, "Oh, I'm done with this one." I'm like, I'm gonna. He finished the Lord of the Rings in the '50s, but he kept working on the setting. Okay, he wanted to publish the Silmarillion, obviously, which Christopher finished for him. Christopher and God Gabriel K. But he wanted to publish more. He wanted to expand stuff into other books. Some of the parts of the Silmarillion, like of Baron Luthien, which Christopher finished before he died. And there's nothing wrong with that because Christopher worked with Professor Tolkien for the entirety of Christopher's adult life on the Lord of the Rings. He even made some of the maps and a couple of the setting parts of the setting. He did participate in the setting, even though Tolkien is the master, of course. So Christopher finishing some of those books, nothing wrong with that. Right? Now, so that's all the category. That's the Astari issue. Okay, who that could be. And the second rumor that I've heard that Sauron is the fireball. Now, I already gave you all the details on Sauron. He's already in Middle Earth. He's already in a fair and pleasing form. He still has his full powers at the beginning. There's no reason for him to make a giant fireball in the sky and say to everyone, "Hey, I'm here." There's nothing. That is not how Sauron works. Yeah, he will go to war and crush people, but his preferred method is ruthless domination. He'll build his armies and whatever, but he prefers if you just surrender to him because he prefers order above all things. Okay, he'll deceive people. He'll go through that, but he's not. He doesn't. If he calls attention to himself, it's a specific purpose. And for a giant fireball in the sky. So, who else could that be? Okay, there's 2 other possibilities in the setting, which I don't even think they own the rights to these 2 characters or the license to the rights to the characters. There are 2 Maya One is named Tilion, who guides and protects the moon. There's different versions, the different stages of the moon behind the scope of the video. And there's a Maya named Arion, the Maiden of the Sun, who guides and protects the sun. She is one of the few spirits of fire that Melkor failed to corrupt. Okay, so they could actually be in space and come down in a fireball. Right? There's two possible characters who might have a reason to be in space and come down a fireball, unlike all the other characters I mentioned. But I sincerely doubt they're going to do that. I would be impressed if they actually pull Tilion out of the lore. I admit that. I expect this to be a crap show. But if they actually pull the Guardian of the Moon, or even Arion, if they decide to make it, they didn't read the text and said this is a female, a spirit that manifests as female, if I would be mildly impressed that they actually reference that character. Okay, but doubtful. So realistically, there's no reason, because this is before Numenor sunk, that anyone would need to blast out of the sky to get to Aman. Right? And to get to Arda, from Aman. So this is a blatant deviation, unless they use Tilion and Arion, if they have rights to them, that the Amazon from the actual canon. Okay, everyone who really matters to this story, even except for their made-up characters, is already in Arda. Okay. Now, this character has been called the Meteor Man, so it indicates this is an entirely new character. And the reason I mentioned the Catholic compliance, in it's always described when angels fall that they fall to earth. Okay, that's what a fallen angel, they fall out of heaven. Heaven is not in outer space in Tolkien's setting. Okay, it's explicitly speaking outside of Ea, the universe. Ea, which is the Quenya for universe. It's explicitly in the void outside there. Okay, so, and Eru has explicitly said, once creation is engendered, so to speak, no one from outside can come in. Melkor snuck in. Melkor is Satan. It's another Tolkien letter. Okay, and he will sneak back in one more time at the end of time. Okay, no one else can get back in without Eru's permission. So Sauron can't be in heaven and fall then. Okay, so maybe they're gonna try. If that is Sauron in the fireball, maybe they're gonna pretend the first age never happened. Don't know. Okay? Amazon, even with the limited material they licensed, could have made dozens of shows and movies compliant with canon, where you had diversity, real diversity, not fake diversity that they're doing, and everyone would have enjoyed it. Okay, I mean, I'll give you a brief hypothetical. Okay, so Numenor is a seaborne kingdom, right? That's in the Atlantic Ocean and whatnot. Well, why not? If you want to have black characters, why not have ambassadors from an African nation which you could legit make up? Okay, as long as it's within the context of the setting, have them be a participant in some political affairs in Numenor, because obviously, Tolkien might mention a war that occurs, but he's not going to mention the name of every single soldier in a war. You could have fit something like that in, which doesn't conflict with canon. Just as a brief example. I'm not saying they're going to do that, but there's ways they could have done this if they want to add diversity, proper diversity, by making a new original character that will be lore compliant. But they're changing existing characters and they're bastardizing the lore that J.R. Tolkien created. Sorry if that came off with a bit of a rant. I probably will have to do another video on this trailer. Maybe. I don't know. I might wait for another teaser because, to be honest, other than some of the stupid looking, the way the characters look being stupid, you might have to comment. So comment down below if you have any questions for me about this video. Please share your thoughts. Share this video if you enjoyed it. Like if you like. Dislike if you dislike. Subscribe if you want to hear more from me. My name is Matt. This has been Unbearable 73. Have a nice day, and I am out of here.